Well, good morning, everybody. I'm going to do the translation of the conference today, and I'd like you to stay tuned at the end if you're up to it. I know they're usually long, but I have a video of a corrido, which is a song about AMLO, which was sung by Blanca Pasapera. And if you want to stay at the end and listen, you're welcome to do so. It's beautiful girl, beautiful song. You'll love it. Bye. I'll go ahead and start recording now. Never mind the bye part. Okay, so we're starting.
El nombre es intrascendente, pero sepa. Bueno, vamos a tener información.
So we're going to be giving information
sobre el dengue.
Regarding the dengue,
Ayer me preguntaron,
which yesterday they asked me about
este tema.
Regarding this matter.
Se planteó que era
And it was mentioned that it might be a matter related to the fact that they didn't buy insecticides, well, at least in time. And that's why it grew. The influence of the dengue in the country. We asked for information regarding what was happening. And today we're going to let everyone know what's happening really, or actually. And why is it that this dengue came out? I did not have all the information. It's just that by instinct, I said that probably someone that had business in mind, and those people interested in money. And so I'm asking this man to explain what's happening. And it's information for everyone. It's information regarding safe health for all the Mexicans. And we can all help, because sometimes it has to do with cleanliness, and that you not accumulate residuals, trash, and that we not have little puddles, so that it don't proliferate the little mosquito. And it has to do with what we can all do all together. And that is why we're giving this information. So, thank you, Mr. President, and good day all. I'm commenting regarding the dengue, and I want to transmit a message regarding prevention. Effectively, the dengue is an infectious disease that affects all Mexicans, particularly the ones that live in the humid areas. And the prevention is basic health, with public spaces, which is the responsibility of the municipal governments, according to our Constitution. And also for private spaces and community areas. And of course there it's community and family. So in previous happenings, there's 4 types of virus dengue that's called like that, dengue 1, 2, 3, 4. Second, the dengue is transmitted via mosquitoes, a particular Aedes, and that's the name. But just know that the mosquito is within the whole republic. Anywhere where there is 1,800 in below altitude level. And progressively, in the recent years, there have been, we've observed that at higher altitudes, the mosquito doesn't go up there. But now, in 2006, they didn't have dengue in Guanajuato, and then all of a sudden they started having it. And then Aguascalientes. So the reason for the prevention and control is based basically on the transmission. Where there's no mosquito, there's no dengue. Of course, the force of nature is very powerful, and it's very difficult to control. And biologically and ecologically, we cannot eliminate all the mosquitoes in any sense. That is a scientific question that has been done since the 1950s, when they had yellow fever in the continent. And it was transmitted by the mosquito. And now there's other diseases that are transmitted by the mosquito. So according to the science, we cannot eliminate the mosquito. But the mosquito also is important in environmental and human interests. We need to control the mosquito not proliferate, particularly in the areas that are near where people live in particular. The transmission of the dengue occurs privately mostly in their homes, because it can only travel 500 meters. So the transmission of is usually in the houses, patios, and that's where you get the first part of the prevention, which is based on cleaning the area. This means just not cleaning from dust, but you also need to make sure there's no water deposits. It doesn't even have to be a big deposit. Like if you leave a little plate of water or some kind of, tires are terrible. And then also old tires that are on top of some dungeons or basements and in different zones and public services. It comes through like they have like little like little buckets that people leave buckets of water, and so that they cannot, you need to clear those out so that the females cannot lay their eggs, and then the mosquitoes come, and then there's the transmission. So the campaign traditionally for prevention is so wash, cover, and empty out and leave everything. So anything that has to do or contains water, you need to leave them upside down and maintain that everything be, all the water receptacles be turned upside down and there be not water. Gardens, kiosks, everyone needs to let them know that they need to keep it dry. And even in cemeteries, you know, that people leave water receptacles with flowers and stuff, and that belongs to the personnel of these places, and notify them. The community needs to help and organize themselves and keep, and if the municipalities aren't doing, the community needs to make sure they do it, because ideally you don't want to leave trash and little things that can, receptacles for water, because this occurs every year. It returned 40 years ago, and so it's returned with a fervor. And for the last 12 years it had diminished. But before they had dengue, and it will continue to exist. It's a phenomenon that's ecological, that they cannot control, absolutely. The dengue occurs in the whole world, particularly in the humid and tropical areas. But in Mexico, we're going to have dengue, but that means we still need to act against dengue. That does not mean you need to resign yourself, but it's a reality that the citizens need to understand. That, and the measure that locally you need to act in order to wash things off, turn anything that can be a receptacle for water, turn it upside down over, keep everything clean so that we can prevent the transmission of dengue. Every year, the dengue has a cycle. When it's dry and cool, there's less. But as soon as it rains, the dengue starts. And in May and June, and at the end of October, when it gets dry, that's when it starts to go down. So that's the season where you have to be much more active in the prevention and community participation to demand that local government help prevent the transmission and to clean public spaces. These actions are very important, but they're so difficult to gain this participation with the community, which is important. Then sometimes it requires that we need to come to a second line of control with the insecticides for mosquitoes. But there's two parts. One is controlling that the mosquito not be born, and there's chemical products that you can put in receptacles in order that the larvae won't proliferate. And then when the mosquitoes are large, you need to fumigate. Fumigate in front of the houses and public spaces. And sometimes we need to, there's maybe sometimes too much and we have to use airplanes. And effectively, like in any other occasions, it was, we have been subject to a campaign of misinformation that were, they try to sell the insecticides. So it is, federal purchases is $90 million. And so it's the consumption for healthy. And so there's some groups that are trying to control the products. So they try to make it seem like it's more tragic, or they're trying to position themselves in order to get money. So this signal, they're trying to say that we didn't put out the insecticide. No, that's false. No, we 2/3 for the control of dengue are bought in the states. And from the beginning of the initiation of the year, the money is transferred from the secretaries of each state. And it's provisioned because it's the first line of defense against, and there's 2/3 of that is for that. And the federal purchase is for the phase when it's after or a later phase. In some states that their capacities have gotten out of control, then they have the federal government will come in with technical personnel and then they'll use the federal level purchase of the medications or the insecticides. But so traditionally they buy it in May, but it will be in August this year because it's preventative. It starts with each state. So first, the third part is federal. It's not a problem. It won't affect the calendars of the federal uses. And that's why in May and June, we're fighting against corruption, and we're not going to let them. And we found that there was no scientific basis for giving a insecticide every time. And in the past, they were used indicating and they were letting the companies take advantage. Now we're doing things very transparently, and we consulted the health department, and we've just identified which was the problem and what we could do and what was the problem with these types of products. It does not have anything to do with the reality and the federal government. But it is true that this year we have 3 times more dengue. Yes, that is true. But that has happened several years in the past when you compare it with the year. But if you measure with previous years, it's probably the same. So some years are fluctuating. So this year it's less this year than between the last 7 years. But if you only compare it with the previous year, yes, there's biological reasons, climate, a new element that explains this, like Honduras, which has the highest amount. It's also explained. We had an epidemic of Zika, and that is worse than they let us know. We have data of serological exams that shows that 75% of the population in the zones is the same one that transmits the dengue, could have been infected by Zika, which is a virus. It's transmitted the same way by the same type of mosquito, and it's genetically similar to dengue, the Zika is. And so if you're, it actually, curiously, it actually inoculates you when you have one or the other. So it appears to be, so the ones that get the first time, one disease or the other, seems to have the more symptoms than one that doesn't. So it's a phenomenon not totally demonstrated, but it is an important matter in the world, because after Zika, we're starting to have a higher amount of dengue. Not more transmission, but just more people with Zika and symptom of dengue. And the last part is, who has dengue will have symptoms of it's in humid, hot areas, and they will have fever, headache, pain in the eyes, but it's not always presenting. Body aches and joints, muscles. So they call it the fever that breaks bones. These people should go to the health department, because the moment that you have it, where the most people have it, 9 out of 10 people have, but 1 out of every 10 can go to the worst, you can get hemorrhage, and your feet get swollen and your face gets swollen if it gets to that phase. And that phase could be very dangerous, because the person decompensates and the circulation dehydrates, and it could cause death. And it's very important not to self-medicate, especially with anti-inflammatories. No for anti-inflammatories with dengue. You could use it for, you can use the fever, generic products. So you can use like Tylenol, but no anti-inflammatories, because like aspirin, because it can increase the risk of worsening and dehydration. Thank you, Mr. President. Well, so it was very well explained, and it helps us a lot in order to participate in the prevention and that we uh, maintain ourselves informed. And there is, if there was any questions regarding this matter, now it is clear. Oh, there's somebody with a question. Dengue, he wants the graph back up there because he wants to explain the graph. The statistics for the occurrence of dengue is a small part according to what they're actually, it's a small part compared to other phenomena. The vigilance is very important to see the tendencies, where it's going, how it's propagating, where is it more dominant. We can't say absolute numbers because if I said 15,000 people, then the number would be very strong. But we need to know that there's many more than 15,000. Maybe it's 50,000 or 60,000. So you don't get obsessed with those numbers. If you say, no, let's say there's about 50,000. The important part is the vigilance. Where is it going? And environmental monitoring and concentration of the ozone and many other things. So we took different samples in different stations of area. And so sometimes there's they obsess on the numbers, the precise numbers. But technically, we know that there's more. We just don't know the number exactly because it's not measurable. But what is helping us a lot is to know the distribution regionally. The 4 states with the highest number of cases at this time is Veracruz, Jalisco, Morelos, and Chiapas. Keep an eye on this. That does not mean that the cleanliness is not less than. Like Veracruz is one of the cleanest areas of the Republic in most populations. Then the other one, that according to the number of people in the area, so if the important thing here is that the grave cases do depend with a opportune response with the beginning. But first you gotta ask for help. If the person stays, so he says, I want to reiterate, do not use anti-inflammatories. It needs to be detected when it's in the light phase, the mild phase. The distribution for male and female is about the same. So women are a little less favored. So the ones that usually get it more are the older and middle-aged adults because they're in more public spaces. And the distribution, due to economical areas, it has to do with social justice. Because why is it that the poor people have more dengue? Because they don't have the conditions of life and public services like water, quality homes, poor cleaning of the streets, the drainage, and they have more puddles, and it's an injustice of social injustice. And the responsibility of the municipalities to provide the services, and for the public to demand it of their municipalities, that they give them the treatment. Yes, dengue does have a mortality, and I will talk to you on a high number. So we have a flyer that the disease control,
Ustedes todos los viernes y lo seguiremos haciendo con
you can
absoluta
go,
transparencia. Es una tradición ya de la salud
it's a
pública.
tradition to
Publicamos un boletín todas las
give
semanas sobre el
a
dengue, que
flyer
viene
every
detalle por
week
estado, por,
regarding the dengue,
donde
which
hay
has now
mortalidad y la
become a
comparación
norm
con
for
años
us.
previos, etc.
Every Friday we give a
Número grueso,
flyer that says
tenemos
where the dengue is.
120 muertes hasta ahorita.
We have
Insisto, no
about
traigo
20
el dato
deaths so
preciso, pero
far.
con mucho gusto lo circulamos, de muertes. Las personas que han
The
muerto
people that
por
have
dengue,
died due to
la
dengue
distribución de edades
and the
parecida a quienes
distribution
tienen dengue,
of
igual a
dengue
decesos.
age,
Tiene que ver con
it
esto
has to
de
do
que
with
no recibieron atención
they did
oportuna.
not get attention right away. In a lot of cases, because they got too late,
Muy tardíamente a las unidades de salud.
so they went too late to the health departments or health clinics.
Detectar esa transición.
And
Y
we
hacemos
need to,
capacitaciones todos los años, la volvemos a
if
hacer
they let
ahora,
us know soon
para
enough, we can detect that
detectar
transition
los signos
so that
tempranos
we
del
can
dengue grave.
look for
Vamos a
the
tener un
early
curso
signs.
en Chiapas,
And in Chiapas,
en la tercera semana de
and the
septiembre,
third week of September,
organizado y apoyado
they
por la Organización
organize
Panamericana de la Salud y
the
con la participación del
Pan
Instituto Nacional
American
de Salud Pública y desde luego la
Department of
Secretaría de
Health
Salud de Chiapas, un curso
a
para
course in
entrenar
order
al
to
personal
train
de
the
salud, al
personnel,
personal
the
médico,
health
enfermeras,
personnel and
enfermeros y médicas
doctors,
también.
nurses,
Y va a ser un curso en línea,
and it's going to be
personal de
course in
salud,
line
estén
with
atentos por favor en todas las
health.
regiones donde hay dengue,
Please be
porque ustedes van a
aware
poder acceder
because you will
en las
be able to have
plataformas
access in the
electrónicas de la Secretaría de Salud
electronic
y del Instituto Nacional de Salud
platforms,
Pública, que es parte de la Secretaría,
which is
a
part of the
este curso en
secretary.
línea y
Plus,
se pueden capacitar.
uh,
Muchas gracias. Este es el boletín.
so there's the flyer that we put
Ahí
out,
están.
and you can
Allá ven en la tablita de hasta arriba,
see the table at the very highest
están los
part.
números
You can
absolutos
see the numbers,
y
the
vean
absolute
ustedes,
numbers, and you can see
están las defunciones.
that
Yo les dije,
the
bueno, ya me
deaths are
había
there. Oh,
sobregirado,
cases.
ahí están las 28
Actually, it's
registradas.
only
Pero
28.
volviendo a lo mismo,
But,
si dice 28,
but if it
seguramente
says
hay
28,
450
there might be more
reales, ¿sí?
because
Que quede
we're
claro,
not
no es una omisión,
sure.
no es esconder la realidad. Es como funciona
And
la
so that's how it
vigilancia
functions,
científica, técnica.
the scientific.
Si nos obsesionamos con el número,
So if we obsess ourselves with the
ahí está,
numbers,
la tablita siempre
you
tiene
can see the
probables,
tables always
confirmados,
probable and
grave y
confirmed,
no grave,
grave,
las
not grave,
defunciones
the
y los
deaths,
estimados.
and the estimates.
Las estimaciones que
The
hacemos
estimations
tienen que
that
ver
we
con
do have to do
precisamente
with
que
precisely
sabemos que la vigilancia
that we know that
es
the
una señal
vigilance
y hay que
is
tomar en
is
cuenta que
important,
no llegó a
and we have to
paciente y no
take
fue
into
detectado,
account
¿de acuerdo?
that
A
you
quien no
cannot
se hizo la
detect,
prueba, o sí se
and
le hizo,
if
pero
they
ya había
did not
pasado
have the
el periodo para
test,
prueba,
and then they
aquí en
didn't
la
go
regular,
back.
los estimados.
So
Y
here you
ahí se
can
ve la
see that
distribución por
this is where they
especialidades. La
manipulate
letalidad
the
es qué porcentaje de quien tuvo
distribution.
la enfermedad murió.
So
Y
when
tenemos un indicador
what percentage of people
más o menos
had it
aceptado a nivel
and
mundial,
died.
aunque hay variaciones en países,
Sometimes there's variations in
cuando la
countries.
letalidad
When the
ahí está
lethal
marcado, tiene el
part
2%,
has
es
2%,
que hay una letalidad
that means
relevante.
there's
Sí,
a
yo lo
relevant
Y ahí está por
death.
estados en la tabla 3,
So you can see in table
Jalisco,
3,
Chiapas, Morelos,
Veracruz,
y luego de ahí van a ver todos los siguientes.
and then everybody else. Okay.
Pueden ver
You can
aquí
see
la distribución de los
the
virus.
distribution of the
Ahí están
virus.
1, 2, 3 y 4,
There's 1, 2, 3,
y
4,
ahorita ha estado predominando
and now you can see
el
it's
2.
predominating
En
in
México,
2.
desde los últimos 18 años,
In the
predomina el
past
virus
few
1
years,
y
we've
2,
had
mayormente
predominance of
y a
virus
veces
1
es-
and 2.
¿de acuerdo?
Okay. So I want to ask,
¿Realmente el insecticida a nivel federal se utiliza cuando ya fracasaron en los estados o hay necesidad en los estados?
so when do they actually use the insecticide?
¿De cuánto fue la compra este año?
How much was the purchase this year as compared to other years? Or,
Y si se encontraron, pues,
and did they find any corruption?
Decisiones. No hablemos de fracaso.
Let's not talk
No
about
es que entra la
failures,
federación a rescatar
because
un estado que
the
fracasó.
federal,
No va por ahí.
it doesn't mean that if
Es
the
segunda
federal
línea
government goes in if they
de-
failed.
mismo
It's
operativo.
just part of the
Y
operation.
cuando el operativo
And when the
estatal
operative,
rebasa la capacidad de los recursos estatales,
when,
ahí el apoyo
like when
federal
they just
está
have
así diseñado el
more,
sistema. No quiere decir, oh, fracasaste.
like,
Lo
no,
enfatizo
it just means
porque eso, si lo
that
vemos como fracaso, nos llevaría
if you look at it as a
al
failure,
estigmatizar
then you
estados
would
que tienen mayor
stigmatize
transmisión del
people
dengue
that have
por
more
razones
dengue,
múltiples,
be it for
sociales,
multiple
climáticas,
reasons, social,
culturales,
climatic,
etc.
you know, they might have more. It has nothing to do with their failure. It's just a second line of defense. And the purchase, like a lot of times, as positions which we've mentioned before, they did these public declarations in June. I can say what companies bought and sold compared to previous years and what is the full amount that was spent on it. The elements that regarding whether there is or no corruption, we don't have actual, we, you know, like actually have bribes or any kind of actual, but we do see is the so they've kind of been trying to control which medication, which insecticides are better. And we do have a system of monitoring the resistance of insecticides, which was established in 2009. And the logic is that we have preferential evidence in case why we use one or the other. But the professionalism of technical, of these units that monitor, which are financed primarily with the state secretaries, with using federal resources, and it still needs work to professionalize it. The proof of resistance is you need to collect the mosquitoes go with a, I don't know, like some kind of a vacuum or something, and you put them in a receptacle, and then you put them in a laboratory, and you put insecticides in them, like say different kinds, like when you want to compare, and then you measure with a chronometer how much time it took for them to die, to decrease the population. And so we can see like how long they measure how long it takes for the quarter part, the half part, 3/4 part. So you can see it's a process that's actually very simple, but it's a little rustic, and it's kind of rigorous. That's the part we need to work on with professionalism, and to professionalize the people that monitor and say which insecticide we're going to use. With certain speed, we say, this is the reason why I want this insecticide. And when we consult and we say, put the experts with the evidence, and so then the information seems to be fragile. So then we know. So we need to make sure it becomes more professional for these agencies that actually monitor. The federal government, as the initiation of the year, we've actually been having accompaniment of federal to the states. They enter into variable calendars according to the weather. Like in July, maybe one state might already have it with resources, federal resources, but the first line of work, no, the problem is there was no shortage of insecticide, and the government did give it, and it was bought 100%. They got their amount that they were supposed to get, and they've had it since May or June, and that's when we usually foresee and use the preventative measures. And it was given through the Department of Acquisitions. So please do not be worried that it was because we were delayed. No, we were not delayed. And I've already explained that might be more dengue this year. And they want to try to do it with a secondary agenda for people that have interests, like in the insecticides.
razón por la cual se incrementó este 312% tiene que ver con una situación atípica.
So does it have to do with a typical situation? What is the reason concrete that there is a... It has nothing to do with the monitoring. What I'm trying to explain to you, a technical data, which I have been sharing with the community for 10 years. The vigilance is not to count objects. The case or vigilance is to count cases. It's simplest way of monitoring. The phenomenon that are massive cannot be boarded you can't count every particle because there's billions of particles. So there's stations of monitoring. So you see the comparison. So the monitoring is you just take a little sample where it's concentrated. So from this area of concentration, so the concentrated areas and the percentage of particles in that area, it's the same way. You just monitor it that way. The specific reason is not just one thing. The reason as of this date that we have a high, that in the world 312 more than previous year, it's not just one reason, it's multiple reasons. There's three principal factors. One, for reasons diverse climate, the behavior, social mobility of the insects. There's deviations year to year. Compare from the previous exact year, gives you a short, like a small vision. It's like trying to say monitoring of the volcanic activity if you only compare it with last year. Well, so this last year we had 7 exhalations, this year only 2. But maybe the previous year they had 10, or maybe the previous was 12. So we have to take it into perspective. So therefore there's variation. The second is this phenomenon, biological phenomenon, and immunological, the system of defenses of the body, of human and also animals and living souls. That phenomena, particularly scientifically, which is very interesting for public, consists that the virus that are genetically are similar, Zika, like with dengue, can make a particular, they can amplify the response. That means that the antibodies that the body makes against Zika in 2015 or 26 or 8 now will protect you against Zika. Maybe in many years you will not have Zika. However, it will not defend you against dengue. On the other side, but it maybe facilitates the fact that dengue will be more prolific in someone. That phenomenon is looked since the 1980s, the second infection of dengue. First infection was mild. The second infection of dengue was major probability that it would be grave dengue. And so that's an interesting phenomenon, but looks like there's more questions. So the last part you said, is it possible that there's is it possible that the less rigorous use of insecticides, did it possibly make it more propitious? Is it, or what are the insecticides that you've selected for this increase? Thank you for the question, because it helps me to start on another thing that was not mentioned, what has to do with our general strategy of optimization of the the purchase of insecticides. I don't believe that it's a direct response with the less rigorousness. But it's not just in Mexico. The science due to the monitoring or to insecticides, it's precarious in the world in general. It has no relation actually because it's an observed case of dengue. The third reason is 300% more, not necessarily of transmission of dengue, but it's people that were infected with dengue has symptoms. But if this symptom didn't happen due to the punctuation of the symptoms, they wouldn't even know. A lot of people don't even know they have it because the symptoms are so mild. They might not even have symptoms at all, or they just think they have a headache. But now they have more symptoms, so we're seeing more of them. So this phase, or this selection of insecticides, is not so important. What I'm worried about is that there's 8 or 10 products in the market, but they're almost equivalent. So there's very little information. There's none of them are they're very, very similar. My worry is that if there's no science that's strong, saying which is the one that we prefer, then we could do what our Raquel Postel has helped us do, not to allow us to be confused by the pressures of the market. So if there's a product, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are equivalent, they will have to compete. That's how we are able to save. That's how we were able to get competitive prices, decrease 50% on the prices, because we rationalized and we gave high quality at lower prices, so we made them more competitive market. So what about the change of station? How are we preparing in the Republic for the population to be prepared in all the institutions? Yesterday, precisely, we had the surgical INR, and we're discussing the first Mexican Congress that is discussing the influenza. No, we cannot eliminate it from the whole world. It occurs every year in all countries of the world. And it's another example that money or little, we can't count every case, but a third of the populations are infected with influenza every year, 1/3. For us, it's 35 million in Mexico. So that means they just get infected. But 10% out of those 35, 3% are going to have symptoms. And 1%, 3 out of every 1,000, are going to have relevant symptoms that they will even realize. Like 0.5 to 1%. Out of 30 to 60 for every 100,000 are going to have a grave disease or infection of influenza. So we compare it year to year. No, it's not that we don't think it's important. We vaccinate against influenza, not to prevent that it circulates. But in October, we usually see it start. And if it goes up too fast and it's going to April of the next year, you should not think that we didn't do anything. But we vaccinate to prevent the risk or probability that the person that has higher risks of having grave symptoms has grave symptoms. So who do we say it now? These campaigns of promotion. towards the end of this month.
Personas con
Persons
extremos
with
de la vida.
extremes
Adulto
in
mayor
life,
de 60,
like
niño menor de 5 años.
like under 5 and
Personas con
over
enfermedades
60.
crónicas. La número
These have
uno,
the ones that have chronic
obesidad
diseases,
y diabetes,
obesity
que
and
son las enfermedades
diabetes,
de altísima
which
prevalencia en México
have a high
y
prevalence
que
in
son
Mexico
consecuencia, como
and
hemos
are
venido diciendo, de la
consequence
mala
of
alimentación.
poor
Pequeño
nutrition.
señalamiento, la
So,
alimentación no saludable,
so
en particular
unhealthy
las bebidas
nutrition
azucaradas de alto poder
with
calórico
high
y
sugar
nada de
calorie
valor nutricional,
have no
las llamadas
nutritional
comidas
value.
chatarra, son la causa
They're the
principal de la
principal
epidemia de
cause
obesidad
of epidemic
diabética.
of obesity in
Enfermedades
in
cardíacas,
Mexico.
enfermedades pulmonares,
Cardiac and
mujeres embarazadas
pulmonary
son
and
también, estamos hablando de
pregnant
influenza,
women.
no de dengue, no
We're
de
talking about
influenza.
influenza.
Esa es la población que va a
That's
ser
the
susceptible y la
population
población
that
que se va a vacunar.
that is
Preferiría
going to
irnos
be
ya hablando de influenza
vaccinated.
para no confundirlo con
We want to make sure that
preparaciones.
you're not confused
Vamos a
between
tener
dengue and
vacunas contra la
influenza.
influenza. En
Yes,
este
we are
momento
going to
no se
have
puede comprar
vaccinations.
porque las vacunas no existen.
Right now, we do not
Así
have the
de simple. La
vaccinations
vacuna contra influenza se
because it
fabrica
doesn't exist.
año con año
We
de acuerdo a
make
las
it
recomendaciones de la
every
Organización Mundial
year
de Salud,
according
que las
to,
emite en febrero, que las
um,
transfiere en marzo a las compañías farmacéuticas
so
globales
every year
y
it's
las
given
compañías
to
tienen este
the
ciclo
companies and
y
they have this
empiezan a
cycle
producir.
and they start to
Más o
produce
menos,
it.
el
And
calendario variable,
approximately
en la mitad de octubre,
halfway through
viene
October,
nosotros, desde luego,
they,
lo vamos
they
a
give it
adquirir.
to us and of course we acquire it and we have a contract
Multianual, ya
multi-annual
establecido,
which
y
is
vamos
already
a recibir
established and
vacuna,
we'll receive our vaccinations.
deberíamos. Y si no la
And we should be receiving it. And if we don't receive it, it's because the provider does not provide it who's already been contracted.
Insisto que no me gustaría seguir hablando de influenza porque entonces la
I don't want to continue talking about influenza because I don't want to confuse the situation with flu and dengue. We want to, during the flu season, we'll talk about that.
Buenos días. Con respecto a la campaña de prevención, ¿qué se pretende? ¿Cuándo comenzaría? ¿Y por medio de qué mecanismos llegaría a la población?
When did you start the prevention on dengue? The campaign started in April, and we've been having state activities. The phrase is wash, clean, and cover, and turn over. And they have an active web of health and preventative services. So this always starts around the spring season.
Señor presidente, señor subsecretario, doctor, usted ya dejó claro que no hay evidencia.
You made it clear that there's no evidence of corruption regarding dengue, but there's 1/3 part which can be given to the federal government. My question is, how can you be sure that in 75% of these purchases that the states make, there's no corruption? Have they done some kind of auditing to see the resources of the federal government that they send to the... Yes, it's pertinent. When I say no evidence of corruption, no, that doesn't mean that we just don't have any indication that there is corruption in these purchases. The mechanism for health services, like to finance and to pay for the public health matters, is the following. The federal resources pay a part of it, which is substantial, 30 to 40%. They come in different branches. What's given to the popular health and public health and so forth, they're transferred to the states because there's a committee that executes, which continues, which helps to make it transparent, not just the purchase and the expense, and that it be aligned with that special and specific activities. It's a level of detail that it's impressionable or impressive. The Secretary of Health and at federal level and the directors of all the public health sectors, and it's transparent, and there's you can audit it. And in the past, in the federal government and state governments, and um, so like the federal audit. So we are always looking for different evidence, and when we find any evidence of inappropriate behavior, we proceed, but we need to reinforce. We are going to reinforce, like the president said. Our number one plan is our job is to eliminate corruption. The dengue will not be removed or eliminated, but we believe that the corruption will. And it's also very interesting that we occupy time in this conference in order to deal with these matters. Say, for example, the question, when did it start, this campaign of prevention for dengue? And people don't even know about that. What's certain is that there is a need for information. And we need to give more spaces to these matters. Because the majority of the people don't have the information, and as you know, it is not easy to communicate and to get to many people. It might be that they inform a certain sector. Sometimes there's news that are strong, powerful, and they get put out through all the media, and the people only know about 70% find out of the population. And that might be like, say, in a week or in 15 days. Maybe 30% don't even find out. I'm talking about news that is like transcending and strong or powerful. It's a phenomenon, this communication, that the whole world needs to be informed. And that is why we are going to utilize more these conferences in order to inform regarding these matters. Because this media is not just to be boasting, but a lot of people see it. So therefore, we are trying to also deal with these matters so that everything not be political or politics, but it also be politics regarding health, economical, social, and politics for well-being. So all these matters need to be, that are very interesting. So now let's open up the floor. So very good day, Mr. President and Subsecretary. The Fourth Republic regarding the actions of the judge Juan Samuel Ramos, who was implicated in the case of Wale, they've started 2 marches where they've exercised their right to manifestation against the judicial department. So the judicial the people are saying, no more stays, out with the corrupt government, and out with Mora, who was found to be. So consequently, they did a new manifestation where they did a caricature where they signaled that the judge restituted and used his own resources, which was distributed by another judge. So this brought with it the analysis of possible conflict of interest, where Felipe Borrego has a son that works there who's an attorney that works for that judge, which is causing moral damage for the people. And Rosa Montaño Montines gave a stay to one of the people that kidnapped Ronquillo. And a few months ago, the court had denied him. And also regarding the daycare, ABC. And so there was some judges that were implicated in this. So we're trying to comply with the information that the judicial power has an inefficiency of 95% with homicides. There's a overage between the bad attitude and naturally and their judicial nature. It would be important to ask international organizations, anti-corruption organizations of the United Nations, like maybe the court and human rights, because maybe it's time we need to have them contribute to fortify the judicial department so it'll benefit the fourth transformation. Would you be willing to do this request from the international sources? I think that the reform for powers need to be initiated by your own within. It is a matter that needs to be dealt with. What helps the most so that we have better powers that are more honest and just and efficient is the participation of the citizens. To this that you guys are doing, what you're doing now, to participate in this, to inform in a documented manner what is happening and to argument that the things are not right in the judicial department. And if we all do that, if all citizens do that, that will help in order to, so that within its own judicial department, without any interference by the executive power, but as per decision from its own sovereign, from the people, they make them do their auto reform on the inside of this power. So this is the fundamental, what I consider most important, that in a respectful way, without extravagances, like in a peaceful way, you continue trying to deal with this matter. And I am confident that they will take this initiative, and I have confidence in the President of the Supreme Court of Justice. It's an opinion, my personal opinion. He is a integral person that will listen to these petitions. I am not partisan to or party to taking an initiative of reform constitutionally in order to renew the judicial branch power from the outside. This was done before when President Cedillo was in. I am not going to proceed this way. I'm not going to send an initiative,
ni
nor
porque tengamos
because we need
posibilidad
or have a possibility of counting with the majority
a los legisladores
of the legislators.
que no va actuarse de esa forma.
We're not going to behave in that manner because
Considero que
I
la
consider
mejor,
that the best
reforma,
reform,
la mejor renovación
the
debe de
best
surgir
renovation should
del interior
come from
de
within
este Poder Judicial.
the judicial power. What I do
Voy a hacer,
or am going to do,
que me corresponde,
because it belongs to me,
es que cuando
is
me
that when they,
toque
it's
proponer
my turn to
a
propose or to say
al Senado,
who I would like to put in the Senate, and these,
a cuidar
I will be cautious
honorable,
that they be honorable
gente honesta.
and that they be honest
Y lo mismo
people.
en el caso
And the same in the
de
case
la judicatura,
of the judicial department,
para ver
in order to
si alcanza
see if it's sufficient
tiempo
or time
por los que se van a ir
for the ones that are leaving or are going to be retiring to renovate
cuando menos
at least
estos dos órganos.
these two organisms or organizations.
Es decir,
That is to say,
la Suprema Corte
the Supreme
de
Court
Justicia
of Justice
y la judicatura.
and the Judicial Department,
Aunque
even
no
though
deben de ser órganos
they're supposed to be separate or organizations,
siempre es
but it's ideally that they go from the bottom to the top, but it could also be from the top to the bottom. It would be an important
el
advance
que se cuide bien,
that they be very
que
cautious,
no
that,
suceda lo que
that it
pasaba,
not happen like it happened before in other times,
que
that
eran recomendados
they were recommended by
cuestiones políticas
due to political reasons
o para defender
or
intereses
to defend their own selfish
de
interests
grupos,
of
económicos.
groups, economic groups.
Entonces, cuidar eso,
So that's what we want to be cautious with, that it be someone that's honorable,
honesta,
honest,
recta, en lo que
straightforward
corresponde
when it is related to executive matters.
Les informo
What I
que
do inform you is
lo de ayer
that
se
what
comentó
happened yesterday, what was commented
con la
yesterday
persona que se
regarding the
liberó,
person that was liberated
porque así lo decidió un juez,
because the judge decided
esta
that
se
way,
llama investigación,
is now being investigated.
nos informaron
And they informed us
que
that
se abrió una investigación en
they
contra de funcionarios públicos
opened an
por parte de
investigation
la
against
Fiscalía General
district attorney
por
workers
el caso.
due to this case of yesterday.
Estoy seguro que la
I am
Fiscalía
sure
va
that the district attorney will inform in its moment. I'm sure I think they're going to do that, but we did open up a case regarding that matter.
Yo estoy de acuerdo en que los ciudadanos
I am in agreement
ejerzan
with the
su derecho
citizens to exercise their
a
right
manifestarse,
to manifest themselves,
que lo hagan
that they
de
do it
manera pacífica.
in a peaceful way.
No estoy convocando yo a la
I am
manifestación.
not
Ya no puedo hacer
encouraging
eso.
a manifestation. I can't do that anymore.
Esto tiene que ser
This has to be
por iniciativa de
due
los
to the
ciudadanos
initiative of the
y,
citizens
desde luego, de manera consciente.
in a
Ya
conscientious
no es
way.
el tiempo de los acarreados,
It's not the
de las
time
consignas.
like of
La gente
the
se tiene que mover por su propio
people
pie, por su
were
propia
being
voluntad,
forced or being paid. It needs to be someone that is done by their own volition
logremos entre
in
todos
order
una
to
sociedad
that
mejor.
with all of us will
Todos tenemos que
gain a
ayudar.
better society. We all need to help.
Esto que estamos hablando del dengue pues nos ayuda.
This, what we were
Sí,
talking
se
about
hace la
dengue, it
prevención.
helps us if we do the prevention
Se
and
ayuda
preventative measures.
Si no permitimos
And it
la
helps
corrupción,
if we do not permit
si
corruption.
informamos
And if we
de
inform
qué está pasando con los insecticidas,
what is happening with
qué
insecticides,
pasa
what is
con
happening
los que tenían
with those that
la venta de los
were
medicamentos
selling the
y
medications,
ahora están
and now they're
pues molestos.
bothered.
¿Y por qué de
And
las campañas? Contra
because of these campaigns against and for
la austeridad, no va a haber
austerity,
medicinas.
there's
Por
not
la
going to be
austeridad,
any. They're saying because of austerity, there's not going to be medications. There's going to be dengue. There's going to be no anti. No, it's already been explained.
Si hay austeridad,
On the contrary, if there's austerity, there's more
presupuesto
budget
para atender
to attend
las
to
necesidades
the
del pueblo.
necessities or needs of the people.
¿Y a quién se atiende
And,
primero?
and who do we attend first? The poor.
Entonces,
So this
la austeridad no es un
austerity
asunto
is not
administrativo,
an
es un
administrative
asunto de
matter.
principios.
It's a matter of principles.
Nada más que estaban
But
mal acostumbrados.
they were just poor.
Voy a tener que
They were just, they had bad habits.
¿Cómo era lo de la compra de
And
los
I want to
medicamentos?
remind you how they used to purchase medications before.
Tengan la memoria ahí,
I don't know if you have the memory
que
right
ya
there.
tienen mucho tiempo,
That's been a long time.
pero es como para volverles a decir,
But I could
tengan para que
tell you
aprendan.
again so that you could remember
El año pasado,
last year,
3 empresas
3 companies
vendieron al
sold
gobierno federal
to the federal government 70% of all the medications
todos los materiales de
and all the
curación.
health supplies.
Entonces,
So therefore,
vamos a tener que volver
now we're going to have to, we're not going to have to put that back up there, but
a entender de que
then you'll
se
understand
acaba ya
that
la
it ends
corrupción,
now,
que
this corruption.
no manipulando,
No manipulating.
nos van
They're not going to be able to manipulate
a
us
cambiar.
to make a change of opinion.
Cero corrupción,
Zero corruption,
cero impunidad.
zero impunity.
Es que se robaban hasta el
Because
dinero
they
de las
even
medicinas.
used to steal the money for the medications.
Prevalecía el influyentismo.
Influentialism was prevalent.
Vamos a informar sobre eso.
We're going to inform regarding that. The savings that we've obtained,
Bueno, aquí
like
hablaba
let's say we
Hugo
talked, and Hugo was talking
sobre
regarding
ahorros del 50%
that we've saved 50%
en compra de
on the
medicamentos.
purchase of medications.
Entonces, por eso
And that is why
están molestos.
they're bothered.
Ahora sí que hablando en términos médicos,
Like if we want to talk in medical
donde les
terms,
duele,
where it hurts them,
pues en la bolsa.
in the pocket.
Ese es el tema.
That is the matter.
Entonces, en
So
el
therefore,
caso de
in the
la
case of
reforma al Poder Judicial,
reform,
pues tiene que surgir
it
de
is going to surge from the judicial power. And I think it's important
los ciudadanos sigan
that the citizens
participando.
continue
No
to
es llamar
participate. It's not a matter of
organizaciones.
calling other organizations.
Eso se tiene que hacer
That has to be done
de manera consciente, voluntaria,
in a conscientious,
no a la carrera.
voluntary way, not due to manipulation.
Los ciudadanos
The citizens
son
are
mayores de edad,
over
ya no hay
over
ciudadanos
18.
imaginarios,
There's no minors.
afortunadamente.
They're not
La gente está muy
imaginary
despierta, muy
citizens.
avispada.
The people are
Y
aware
también
and awake.
la libertad
And then there's the liberty,
no se implora,
not to implore,
se conquista
to conquer,
y seguir
and
pidiendo el apoyo
to
para que
continue
entre
to
todos,
ask for the support so that with all of us we can push this elephant.
porque estaba echado,
Because
era
it
un
was
elefante
a big, I think he's talking about corruption. It was a rheumatoid.
que lo estamos poniendo de pie
And so we're pushing that elephant, we're putting him up. Now we have to push him forward
entre todos
between all of us
para que camine,
so that it can walk.
porque no estaba
Because it
preparado el
was not,
gobierno
the government was not prepared
para beneficiar al pueblo.
to benefit the people.
No es simplificar demasiado.
It's not
El
oversimplification.
gobierno está más
The government was
dedicado a facilitar
dedicated to facilitating the looting.
era para que
It
se
was
hiciera negocios.
so that they could make business deals.
Entonces,
And that
la transformación significa
transformation means that the government is now
al servicio
at
del
the
pueblo.
service of the people.
Y esa es
And that
la
is
readaptación
the readaptation
que se está llevando a cabo.
that is taking place.
Entonces, por eso también
And that is why
no se pudo comprar
they couldn't
insecticida.
buy
A
insecticide
tiempo pasó
in
un mes,
time.
sí.
It was a month.
Y hemos
Yes.
incluso
And
padecido
we've explained
sabotaje,
that we've had a sabotage,
de que no van a tener medicinas.
they say they're not going to have
No es un asunto
medications.
nada más de México,
But it's not just a matter of
es un
Mexico.
asunto mundial.
It's a worldwide problem.
Recuerden
Remember
lo que pasó en Estados Unidos,
what happened in the United States?
lo que enfrentó.
What they met with?
Son intereses.
And these are
reales.
interests that are created, that are very strong, very powerful.
Aquí
And here,
no es para presumir, pero
I'm not trying to boast,
la
but
gente
the
nos
people
está ayudando
are helping us.
y se va avanzando.
And we are
Aquí
advancing.
no van a haber regresiones.
Here, we're not going to have
No
recreations.
vamos a dar
We're not
marcha atrás. Vamos
going to
bien
go
hacia
backwards. We're
adelante.
going forward, and we're going to continue going forward.
Faltaba nada más una pregunta, señor presidente.
I just have one question.
Bueno, hay una manifestación.
There's a
Afuera de los
manifestation
telefonistas, a quienes les intenta
which
dividir la
are
empresa
trying to
Teléfonos de
divide
México en lo que ellos han llamado una
what they
separación
call a
funcional.
separation of
Estos
functions.
términos que aplican, que son neoliberales, separación funcional, es casi como activos tóxicos.
It's like
Están pidiendo la
active
transferencia de un
toxic
grupo de
behavior.
trabajadores de una empresa a la otra, lo
They're
cual
trying to
significa,
move
es un
the
tema que
workers from one
preocupa
company
mucho
to
a los
another
por la buena relación que hay, ya
due
que
to
saben
the
que hay
good
una mesa
relations.
secretarial. Sería importante
It's
analizar este tema
important
porque
to
están haciendo un
analyze this
llamamiento a
matter
huelga
because
para
they're
el mes de enero.
making a
Ellos no
call
quieren
for
la
a
separación. IFETEL está urgiendo la separación
strike
y
by
asume que
January,
habrá
and they don't want the
afectaciones
separation,
en
and they say it's
intereses
going to
laborales. Hay una
affect labor.
proporcionalidad uno a uno
So there's a
prácticamente
proportion 1 to
entre
1,
37,000
which is
jubilados y
97
pensionados
me,
y 38,000 trabajadores
38
activos.
workers,
Una
and
empresa que quizás
it's a
se envejezca,
company
una
that might
empresa donde el
be
sindicato
older,
termine
where the
dividiéndose y una empresa donde la
union,
mitad, como todo, terminará siendo de robots, donde
so
prácticamente
they're
parte de la
probably going to be
infraestructura
going to
quedaría
robots,
también en capacidad de
and
uso de
part
empresas
of it is
extranjeras.
going to be
¿Estaría
used
usted en
by
esa disposición,
outside
señor presidente? Muchas gracias.
foreign companies. Yes, it's a matter that has to do with a company
Telmex
of Telmex
y que tiene que ver con el sindicato.
and has to do with a syndicate,
Estamos
which is
nosotros,
like the union,
ayudando
and we're
en la
helping
conciliación.
with the
Este es
conciliation.
nuestro papel.
That is
Lo
our
vamos a
part,
seguir haciendo.
and we're going to continue
Vamos
to
a
do that.
escuchar a los trabajadores,
And we're going to listen to the workers
atender
and to
los motivos de la
attend
empresa
to the
y
motives
lo de
of the
el
company
Instituto
and for the
para la
institution
Comunicación
for communication that's fraternal, in order to come to an
que no se
agreement
afecte,
that will not affect the workers,
que no se afecten
that they not affect
los trabajadores
the
y que no
workers,
se afecte la empresa.
and they not affect the company.
¿Cómo hacerle? Hay manera, hay forma.
How to do it? There are ways.
Luego,
Of course,
hay que dialogar.
we're going to have to dialogue or speak, talk.
Las partes tienen
The
que
parts
aceptar
have to
la
accept
intermediación del
the
gobierno.
intermediation of the government.
Sí, nos han estado pidiendo.
Yes, they have been asking us to
Si
participate,
se formaliza sería mejor.
but if they formalize it, it would be better,
Que se abran mesas
so that they can open
y
tables
se pueda atender
and they can attend to this matter
sin que se demerite también el papel
without
del IPP.
taking the merit.
Autónomo.
It's an autonomous, organization. We're trying to find that it would be the most convenient for all people involved.
Gracias, presidente. Buenos
Thank
días.
you, Mr.
Durante
President.
la crónica, dos historias.
There's two stories. One is fresh data regarding public education. They say that they've already opened 87 out of the 100 universities, but still, during this whole time, they've operated without resources because they haven't had money. They've had to organize to buy cleaning, buying soap. The teachers are working without getting any monies or any. The 87 schools that are universities that are not working. Is this a representation of a lesson of that they need to start working more on the actual working on the details as opposed to just looking at a financial way? Yes, it's true what you're saying or expressing. It's a matter of stumbling blocks from administrators. I don't want to use the bureaucratic words or speak of bureaucracies. It's just stumbling blocks. It's just another part that we inherited in order to approve and to simulate that they weren't stealing. They created like a normalcy that was excessive. It is very difficult to obtain resources to execute things because they have one they keep moving it from one office to another. It takes too long. These things that the companies and the businessmen for services, because these things are also happening here in our government. It's the same thing. We all are suffering these problems. Yes, we are also trying to get rid of all that excessive simulation where they would steal, and like the government didn't have any way of or show any benefit for the people, so it wasn't important that they created all these webs of these obstacles that were administrative, that they need an authorization for this, that they need to approve this, perspectives, that they were trying to make sure that the office of the subsecretary that is still the secretary has not authorized, that it went to the director of investments of Hacienda, that they need to be looked at by subsecretary of, and they haven't even looked at it. The Secretary of Hacienda hasn't even looked at it. So they did all these, so it takes a lot of time. So this matter is very important because we're going to be dealing, like since for 15, that we had this meeting, and I put as an example with the universities, and I said, if Raquel Sosa, which is the director of that, asked for the resources, that they give it to her. Because Raquel is an honest woman and integral, uncorruptible. So I gave that as an example. But it depends a lot. The honesty of the public servants. That is what's happening with the resources for making the roads in the municipalities of Oaxaca. We're giving them the money to the municipal. We give them the funds because we are sure that they are honest authorities and that they will take care of the funds and they have values. They still plant corn and they leave it out there. Their corn in trucks. And nobody is thinking about going to steal the money, the corn from the truck of another friend. They have values. This we cannot do with other authorities, unfortunately. With other governments, municipal governments. We give them the money, they steal it. But there is. There are some that are honest. So we are looking for a way of simplifying the internal governments because the resources are available. They have 1,000 million that are authorized for the universities. We opened with the participation of the people, with the communities. They gave the lands. They gave the spaces. The teachers accepted to work and wait so that we pay them for a time. But the time has already passed and it's too long. So I am sure that the Director of Public Education in Hacienda, so that they can resolve this immediately, because that is a preoccupation, and they've told it to me. This regarding the dengue, that's why it's important to go through the whole country and see. And those that accompany me, we were in Veracruz a week ago. I had forgotten in the plan, the Arroyos in a hospital that coincides with this. And they have dengue there in that zone and in the hospital. And a lot of people in the hospital were sick with dengue. So we have to, as I go to the little provinces, I get information firsthand. And they had already told me in one of the conferences that they were not paying the teachers from the universities that are now open. So this we have to attend to. But we are looking a solution for funds. That is to say, simplify the transmittances so that there not be so much bureaucracy, and that we can operate. And that's why I'm asking for public servants to accompany me to the meetings so they don't stay in their offices, that they need to talk more with the people, that they need to go to the towns, that they need to travel throughout the country, that they need to supervise the works, even if it means the public high-level officials, that all of them be present and visit the communities, the townships, the municipalities, the states. And this is one reason why I am not going to leave the plan out with decentralization. I haven't touched it, but because we are now taking off, we are setting the basis. However, we are not going to forget that we need to decentralize the government. Like they're doing it in the Secretary
ya está en Tabasco.
They're already in
Ya
Tabasco.
está la secretaria, es
And
un
the
ejemplo.
secretary is an example,
Rocío Nale, que
Rocío Nale,
no
that
solo
not only does
tiene
she
oficina
have an
en
office in
Villahermosa,
Villahermosa,
sino
but she
tiene ya
also has
campamento
encampment
en Dos Bocas,
in Dos Bocas,
donde se está construyendo.
where they are constructing the refinery.
Entonces, quiero que
So I want for the
director de
the
Fonatur,
director of Funator,
Rogelio Jiménez Pons,
Rogelio Jimenez
tenga
Pons,
su campamento
he
allá
needs
en
to go
Valladolid,
stay in Mayatori and camp there.
Balancán,
So and
porque es
for
el encargado de la
Balancan,
construcción del
because
Tren
that's
Maya.
where they're constructing the train Maya.
Que Rafael Marín,
And Rafael Marin,
responsable
the
del desarrollo del
responsible
Istmo,
of the
tenga
Istmo,
su
or the,
oficina en
which means the
Tehuantepec,
seismic, needs to have his
Michoacán,
in Michigan in Romero. They need to be where
que estén ahí.
they need to be in the middle of it, not in their offices.
La directora de CONAP,
That the director of Conagua,
Blanca Jiménez, que es
Blanca
extraordinaria,
Jimenez, which an extraordinary person,
que ya esté despachando en Veracruz.
she needs to be in Veracruz meeting people. And when she's in Veracruz,
El sureste está el
and the
70% del agua del
southeast
país.
has 70% of the water for the country.
Entonces,
So
esto va a ayudar
this
que el
will
director
help
de Pemex
that the director of Pemex
despache en Ciudad del Carmen,
needs to be in, his office needs to be in
que el
Tepechi.
secretario de Agricultura
And the
en Ciudad
secretary
Obregón,
of Agriculture needs to be in
el
Obregón.
secretario de Educación Pública
And the
en
secretary
Puebla,
of Education, Public
que
Education
la
in Puebla.
secretaria de Bienestar
And the
despache
public
en
of
Oaxaca,
health needs to be in Oaxaca.
que el secretario de Salud y el
And the
subsecretario
secretary and subsecretary
despachen
need to
en
be
Guerrero.
in Guerrero.
No vamos a dejar eso.
We are not going to leave that alone
Ahora porque
as of
estamos
now, because we're
parando al elefante.
we're still trying to stand that elephant, put it on its feet,
Vamos hacia allá.
but
hacia
we're
la
heading there.
Sí, presidente, gracias. Y la otra historia que quiero
So the
compartirle,
next matter, which I wanna, story I wanna tell you about,
testimonios de ancianas, de ancianos,
testimonies from elderly
mayores
people
que han sido
that
defraudados,
have been defrauded,
desafortunadamente,
unfortunately,
pues digamos por falsos servidores de la nación.
due to false
Gente que,
workers of the
aprovechando,
nation that took advantage.
sabemos que se va avanzando en este
And we know
porcentaje
we're
de
advancing
los
in this
ancianos
percentage
que
of
ya
these
reciben sus
are now
becas.
receiving
Sin
their
embargo, hay un
grants,
porcentaje
but there's a
aún que
percentage
falta,
that
y
are
falsos
still left out,
servidores
and that
de la
false
nación,
servants of the nation
los defraudan,
are
acuden a sus
defrauding
casas,
them.
los vigilan, los
They're
supervisan,
they're supervising
acuden a sus
them,
casas para
and they go to their
pedirles
homes
dinero,
and they ask them for money,
300, 400,
300,
500
400,
pesos, a cambio
500
de
pesos
acelerar el proceso
to
o activar las
accelerate the
tarjetas.
process of
Es
getting
decir,
their
ya
cards.
son,
So
muchos los casos
there's a lot of
documentados
cases that are
sobre los fraudes
documented
a los
regarding the
ancianos.
fraud
Creo que ha
to the
faltado información,
elderly.
presidente, porque platicando yo con
Because
ellos me
as I
dicen,
speak
no
to them,
sabemos
they
por
tell
qué
us why
no se nos ha entregado la
they
beca.
have
El
not given
presidente
us our
había
money.
dicho que a
The
partir del 1
president
de
said
diciembre
that
la
by this
recibiríamos,
December we would have it,
y no ha pasado eso.
and this has not
Las víctimas
happened,
de estos fraudes.
the victims of these
Entonces,
frauds.
sí creo que sería
So
oportuno que
I
usted,
think it would be
explicara
opportune for you to
detalladamente
explain
por qué,
detailed
ha
why
pasado todo
this
esto.
is
Ya
happening.
revisamos,
And
ya
we've
platicamos con
looked and
algunos
we've
servidores,
spoken with a few
nos
servants,
platican que,
and they say that
pues, ha habido o había casos de
that there were cases
duplicidad de formatos,
of
gente que
duplicity,
recibía 5
people that were
apoyos, 4
getting
apoyos,
5
y
supports
gente
or
muy pobre
6
que no
supports,
recibía ningún
and people that were
apoyo.
not getting any.
Pero me gustaría que usted les
But I
explicara a
would
los
like for you to
ancianos
explain
que
to the
esta
elderly.
situación-
Yes,
Que no tengo
I do not have
denuncia sobre
anybody telling me about
eso.
that.
En mis
Nobody
giras,
as I have been walking
puedo
through,
ir al pueblo más
I've been
apartado
to every area, rural
Tamoy,
areas in
de
Tamoy,
paso,
when I'm passing through,
y me paran porque saben
and they
que voy a
stop
pasar
me,
por ahí,
and they know that I'm going
y
to pass
veo
through
un
there.
adulto mayor y le
And I
pregunto,
see an
"¿Ya te
older
llegó
adult, and I ask them,
apoyo
have you gotten their money and
de la pensión?"
from your
Ya me
pension?
dice, "Sí,
And they say yes.
sí, sí, ya me llegó hasta en
Or
las
they say, yeah, we've gotten
lugares
it.
más apartados."
Even in the
Y
most
es de los
remote
programas
areas. And that's one of
que
the
más
problems that
se han
has most
aplicado,
been public,
están más extendidos.
that are most extended.
Sí, les diría que
I would
es
say
el que se tiene más avance.
They have the most advancement.
Ahí el problema
The problem is there
tenemos es que todavía
is that
no podemos
we are not
entregar
able to give
como quisiéramos
like we
con
would
tarjeta
with a card
todos los apoyos.
all the supports.
Y todavía
And still,
hay que llevar a ciertas
we have to take to
comunidades,
certain
a ciertas
communities
regiones,
and certain
dinero
regions
efectivo.
money in cash.
Han perdido la vida
And some people have lost their lives,
servidores públicos
public servants
que han sido asaltados.
that have been,
Esto no lo hemos
been assaulted.
transmitido, pero es
We
una
haven't
realidad.
told you
Entonces
about it, but
queremos
it is
que ya no se maneje
the
efectivo,
reality. So we don't want to
por
have
varias
them have any
razones.
cash
Pero el
anymore
riesgo
because
de los
there's
que
a
llevan
risk of being
este
assaulted
dinero,
that for the people that are carrying this money.
también para que no haya corrupción,
And also so there not be
no tenga
corruption.
tentación de sacar
And
ahí del sobre, ¿no?
and so, they won't take some money out of the envelope and they take a portion so they don't try to take their
Pero no
cut.
tengo
But I don't have
denuncias
anybody complaining
de que les estén quitando.
that they've had their money taken or,
De todas maneras,
but still I will look into that. I gave it to the Secretary of State. Okay, I will ask him. They're false servants. They're people that they're taking advantage.
entonces decirle a la gente,
So let the people know,
adultos mayores,
older adults, that
actúen
you need to
de
act
manera precavida,
in a cautious way.
que no le crean
Don't believe
a cualquiera
anyone
que se informen,
and to get
que los
informed
familiares
that family
pidan información,
that the family asks for information and don't let them
engañar,
trick you.
Van a seguir llegando los
The
apoyos,
money's still going to continue to
y tiene que
come
llegarles
and you
completo.
have to get all of it.
Son
There's
2,550
2,550 pesos
bimestrales.
bimenstrual,
2,550
2550.
Lo que
And
sucede
what has
a
happened sometimes
es que
is that
les llega el bimestre
that you would get your bimenstrual
y
money
piensan
and you believe
que no va a ser permanente.
and you don't think it's going to be permanent.
Entonces, que sepan que
But
es
let you know that
un derecho
it's a right
adquirido,
that's been acquired
es universal,
and it is universal.
es para todos
It's for everyone
y no es un programa de gobierno, es un
and it is
derecho
not a government program, it's a
que
right
tienen los adultos
that
mayores.
older adults have.
Entonces, se entrega bimestral,
So
pero
we
es
give the money bimenstrually,
permanente.
but it is permanent.
No va a quedar
It's-
un bimestre
It's not, there should not be
sin que
any
les llegue.
two bimester that you will not get your money. It is not, it has to come to you all the time.
Para siempre, es
It's
vitalicio.
forever. It's till the end of your life,
Eso es
this
lo que puedo
money.
comentar.
That's what I can tell you.
Voy a investigar
And
sobre
I will
este caso.
investigate
Hay
regarding this case.
muchas,
There's a lot
tramas.
of people that, in general, that are,
Hay que
we have to keep
estar pendientes, nada más dejarse
monitor, make sure that people don't take advantage of you and
muchas
lie to you and
trágalas,
deceive you. There's lots of
los
people
ofrecen viviendas,
people that are offering and making and doing trickery, like even
recoger fondos,
like people who
luego desaparecen,
say they're going to build your home and they get the funds and then they disappear with your
famosas cajas
money,
de ahorro,
and like they have these false, they tell you they're saving your money
ofrecer intereses
and they give you low interest
elevadísimos
or elevated interest,
y empiezan
and
a encampanar a la
and
gente
so they get the people tricked into giving a lot of money,
dinero por sus ahorros,
and so they say they're going to give them real high interest
cantidad que no les podrían dar
that you couldn't get in the regular
por
banks
otra parte,
or anywhere else,
y de repente
and then all of a sudden
desaparecen.
they disappear.
Esos fraudes
These
hay
frauds,
que evitarlos,
we need to prevent them.
no creer
Do not believe
que hay altas tasas
that there's some very high interest rates
empresas
from companies
grupos
or groups
que ofrecen
that
que
offer
vas a obtener
that you're going to get
más recursos,
more
y la
resources,
gente
because the
pobre,
poor
humilde,
people, the humble people,
para que su dinero no esté ahí
so that their money won't be there
guardado, pues
put away,
piensan
they
de esta
figure that if
manera
they put it that way,
obtener más
they'll get
recursos
more
y son
resources, and
defraudados.
then they're defrauded.
Entonces,
So
informar mucho
we need to
a la gente,
inform the
dejar
people
más despiertos,
and have them be
no
more
creer,
awake and not believe,
y
and
también decirle
also to
a los
let
trácalas,
the trickers, the tricksters,
se vayan al carajo.
that they need to go to heck or get the heck out.
Con Leti, presidente, con Leti han
Sí.
llegado denuncias.
Lo vamos a ver.
So what about
Una
it? So
más.
we're gonna look into that. One more question. Everybody wants to be the one.
Gracias, presidente.
Se me olvidó.
Los enseres.
Lo de los rastrillos.
Sí.
Oh,
Es que hoy,
today we were supposed to deal with the rastrillos.
voy a solicitar de cómo está ese cómo. Sí. Es como lo de la longaniza, pues.
It's like the sausage thing.
En este caso.
In this case,
Pero hoy voy a pedir la información.
today I'm going to be asking for the
Presidente,
information.
para
Ayer no tuve tiempo de eso.
Yesterday I was not able to answer it yesterday.
preguntarle, presidente,
I want to ask
la
you,
CFE ha pagado más de 1.200 millones de dólares
is it
por
true
el
that they've paid
portuguismo de dependencias federales? Esto en el
1,200
pasado, el tema de la construcción de los
regarding the
gasoductos,
construction of the
también por
gas
retrasos
ducts?
que se han generado por
And
conflictos
due
sociales
to
en las comunidades. Yo le
conflicts,
quiero preguntar si su gobierno,
if your
tras la
government,
negociación con los
with the
empresarios,
negotiation of the businessmen, are you going to help to speed it up so you won't have additional costs? And if your company, if your branch of government has assigned someone to stop the blocking of the construction, yes, we are working on this. The Federal Commission of Electricity and the Secretary of Government, Les Cordero, is now been commended to help in order to, so that the works won't be detained and they won't charge us according to fines as to so that you won't spend in a way that is inappropriate due to inattention. So we are looking at that, and I want to comment that the negotiation that was done also has a revision to the funds and payments that they not the funds that should not have been or paid and that needed to be paid at the end, but they were paid in advance. All that came into the negotiation that took place recently. However, going forward, we're going to be independent and we're going to help so that they not detain the works, so they can prevent the turtle behavior, slowness. We're working this way. We are bending over to do our part. Not the traditional orthodox way of managing public administration. I used to talk about Rocio, or mentioned her. She is the Secretary of Energy. And at the same time, she's the one responsible for the construction of the refinery, which depends on Pemex. However, here, these are not charges, these are duties, like Rogelio, Tren Maya, Rafael Maria,
el istmo,
Istmo, which is seismic.
el General Vallejo,
General
el
Vallejo,
aeropuerto de Santa Lucía.
airport of Santa Lucia.
Y así,
And so there I
este,
assign
hay
people,
responsables.
and they're responsible.
Por ejemplo, la
For
atención
example, the attention
a los familiares afectados,
to the
Tahualito,
family that
la
were
explosión.
affected by the explosion,
La subsecretaria
the subsecretary
de Gobernación,
of
Diana
government,
Álvarez,
Diana
esa
Alvarez, is the one
tiene a su cargo
that is in charge,
que no les falte
that
nada.
nothing is, that they are not missing anything.
Perdieron
Those people that
familiares,
lost family
los
members,
niños.
the children.
Ella es
She's in charge, she's responsible for making sure that the children not
cada quien
be
tiene
missing anything.
un encargo.
Everyone has been
Independientemente
given
de parte
a
de
duty depending aside from their job, no matter if they're subsecretary.
le corresponde,
Like he has his jobs, which is regular for prevention,
pero
but additionally,
responsable
he's also
también
responsible for
del programa
the
de
program for
orientación
orientation
a los jóvenes
for youth
para
to
prevenir
to prevent
adicciones.
addictions.
Él nos ayuda mucho
And he
en
helps
eso,
us a lot in that.
que ese es un plan
That it be
importantísimo,
it's a plan that's very
porque
important,
si no
because if
se
we
reduce el
do
consumo
not reduce the consumption
de drogas,
of drugs,
va a ser muy difícil
it will be very difficult
enfrentar
to
el problema de
confront
inseguridad
the
y violencia.
problem of security and
Como
violence
parte de estos hechos criminales,
because of these criminal groups
son jóvenes drogados.
are young people that are in drugs.
Un gran porcentaje.
That's a great
Entonces,
percentage
¿qué
of them.
tenemos que hacer?
So what do we have to do?
Pues, evitar que los jóvenes
We need to prevent the youth from consumption.
enfrentamientos de
All these
Michoacán recientes,
confrontations in Michoacán
drogados.
were people that were on drugs, according to the
En el
families.
caso de
And
Coatzacoalcos,
in the case of Coatzacoalcos, a young guy that was
rociando
burned
gasolina,
with a
15
gas,
años.
15-year-old.
Entonces, tenemos que atender eso.
So we need to attend these
básicamente.
things,
Entonces,
basically.
sí es
Yes,
la Secretaría de
it
Gobernación.
is the secretary.
Y otro punto que le quiero hacer, presidente.
And another
El día de
point I
ayer,
want to
el
make.
Wall Street Journal publicó una investigación en la que se revela que el empresario Ricardo Salinas Pliego está vinculado a empresas que a su vez están vinculadas al asunto de Fertinal. Yo quisiera
So
preguntarle si
someone
usted
is,
consideraría que este empresario formara parte de su consejo asesor o los convenios que tienen con Banco Azteca
someone who
para
seems to be
para
involved in
pagar los
multiple
ingresos
things
de
that
los
might have
recursos de los programas sociales,
resources
dados
with a
estos
bank
casos, posibles vínculos de
and
corrupción.
its possible vehicles for corruption.
Estás expresando.
What you are expressing are possible vehicles. You used it correct.
Posible,
Possible.
es como si presunto,
It's not presumptuous.
sujeto a investigación,
You need to have an investigation.
lo está atendiendo
So he's,
una
it's not
autoridad.
even being attended by
Creo
an
que hay una
authority.
denuncia
I guess there's some
todavía
kind of a
no se
complaint
le ha dado curso.
that has not taken its
Entonces,
course.
nosotros no podemos,
So we cannot
descalificar a
de-
nadie,
disqualify anybody
por anticipado.
in anticipation.
No puede haber un juicio sumario,
You can't assume a judgment, especially
hacerlo aquí,
do it here,
porque
because
tomaría yo partido
I would be taking part
y afectaría yo la dignidad
and I would affect the dignity of the people.
Eso no se puede hacer.
And you cannot do
Y no
that.
me importa que lo haya
And I
dicho
don't care
Juan Estrella Journal.
that it don't matter who says it.
Para ser Juan Estrella Journal.
Even if Wall Street Journal said it, they've said lies before. Just because Wall Street Journal says it. Even Reforma.
Vamos a esperar.
So we'll wait,
Vamos a esperar.
and we'll wait.
Yo lo único que puedo
And I
decirles
want to say,
es que
the only
no
thing I
hay
can say is that
impunidad.
there is no impunity.
No hay influyentismo.
There is no influentialism.
No, se permite
We do not
la
permit
corrupción.
corruption.
Pero
However,
pues también tenemos que hablar
we still have to act in a
¿Tienen el detalle
proper
de
way.
cuántos servidores públicos han sido
So,
atacados,
some public
asaltados o
servants have been
asesinados por el
assaulted
traslado de recursos
due
públicos
to
para bajarlo
resources?
de la
lo
pensión?
vamos a conocer.
To yeah,
Conozco un
we're
caso,
gonna. I do know of this
Chiapas.
case in Chiapas,
Pero hay otros.
but there's other cases as well
Entonces,
where someone was assaulted with the money for the elderly.
con Jesús
So with Jesus
y con Gabriel
and with Gabriel,
para tener la información.
in order to have the
Y
information.
acuérdame de los
And remind me of the
rastrillos.
rastrillos. There's some people that are elderly that have not gotten their pension. They already had the card. So they've had the card, but they have not gotten their resources yet. And they're asking if there's going to be a retroactive and when will they get the resources, because they have the card, but they cannot activate it. And every time they try, or they have the or they can go to the secretary, they tell them that it'll be soon in the city of Mexico.
No hacemos esto. El lunes,
Why not? Don't we do this on Monday? No, maybe Tuesday,
siempre lo de
because we always have the gas prices on who's who. So Tuesday,
le pedimos
we'll ask
a la Secretaría de Bienestar
Secretary of Wellbeing and the ones that are in charge of that program to explain how the program is of older adult. But yes, because there's lots of doubt, and the ones that aren't getting, are they going to be getting it? Are they going to get retro?
hubo aquí
Yes,
en la
here
ciudad
in the city there was
un cambio
a change
en la estrategia y
in the
aquí,
strategy, and here
tardó
it was
en
delayed
entregar el apoyo.
to give
Pero
me the funds.
tengo
However,
la información
I do have the information that they've already handled it, and so we'll talk about it on Tuesday.
Sí, el martes.
On Tuesday, we'll discuss it.
Mande.
What about the migratory matter?
Sí.
So he said the concierge is going in September. Have you dealt with the matter of the demands of Mr. Trump? I have not committed
Mayores para mañana.
these big matters till tomorrow, because tomorrow we'll be informing
El acuerdo migratorio.
regarding the migratory agreement.
Secretario Marcelo Ebrard,
The Secretary Marcelo Ebrard and the whole team will be here tomorrow,
porque hay una
because
reunión en Washington
there's a meeting in Washington on the 10th.
y por respeto
And due to respect
a nuestra soberanía,
to our sovereignty,
informar primero en México,
we're going to inform first in Mexico,
primero a los mexicanos.
first to the Mexican
Es
people.
una cuestión
It's a matter
formal,
of formality,
Entonces, primero
but
les
it's
vamos a
also
informar
due
a ustedes,
to being fundamental.
a veces ustedes, a la gente,
And then
y
you
luego
can inform the people.
van a acudirse a la
And then
reunión en
we'll go
Washington
to the meeting in Washington
el día 10,
on the 10th.
pero mañana va a estar
But as of tomorrow,
Marcelo.
Marcelo Ebrard will be here.
Sobre. Sí, mañana les van a informar
Yes,
sobre eso.
tomorrow they will inform you regarding that.
No es
No,
igual
it is not the same
que los aranceles que
as
se
the
aplican,
tariffs that were being applied or are being or that are applied,
represalia.
like a repression.
Es distinto.
This is
Pero
different.
le voy a pedir también a la
But I
Secretaría
will
de
ask the
Economía
Secretary
que
of
les explique
Economy to explain
esto
regarding this,
que Jesús sea
and that Jesus shall be there. He'll help us
también eso.
also.
Vamos avanzando
So we're advancing
en el trabajo
in the work
de información
of information
a dirigentes
to the directors
de Estados Unidos,
of the
también
United
de
States
Canadá.
and Canada.
Me tocó
And
recibir
yesterday I
a un
received a
importante,
person
gente
important
obrero de Estados Unidos,
from the government of the U.S.
Para disipar dudas
to
sobre la reforma
diminish doubts regarding the reform of labor
aprobó y cómo se va a aplicar,
that was approved and how it's going to be
y
applied,
el compromiso de
and
que
the commitment
van a haber recursos suficientes para la aplicación
that there's going to be enough resources for the applications of this
que
form,
era una de sus dudas,
which was
es una de
being
sus
left in doubt
preocupaciones sobre la aprobación.
regarding the approval of the treaty.
Dejé de manifiesto
Also, I left as a manifesto
claridad
for clarity
de que nosotros estamos
that we
a
are
favor
in
de la
favor
firma
of the
del
signature
tratado,
of the treaty
que consideramos
that we consider
conviene
would be convenient for us.
a los mexicanos, pero
To the
también
Mexicans
le
also,
conviene a Estados Unidos y a
it's
Canadá.
convenient for the U.S.
En
and
el caso de
Canada.
México,
In the case of
hice
Mexico,
una exposición de por qué nos conviene.
I did an exposition as to why it's convenient for us. It's like
Y
years of relations, and it's grown.
el comercio exterior
The foreign
ya México
commerce
es
is now.
el principal socio comercial de Estados Unidos.
Now Mexico is the primary
Esto significa que llegue inversión extranjera
foreign in
a México.
relations with the U.S.
Comentaba yo
This means that there will be
que en el
more
semestre
foreign
inversión
businesses
extranjera
coming
a
in.
México como no había sucedido
So there's been investment from the outside like we've never had before in history.
que sí hubo más inversión extranjera, pero fue por la venta
The only other time was
empresas
due
cerveceras,
due to the sale of the business Corona that was
se
sold.
había quedado en el país.
That was
Entonces,
nothing that was left in the
esta
country.
inversión extranjera son
So
empleos
foreign investment and
para México.
will mean
Entonces,
work
sí nos
in Mexico.
conviene,
So yes, it is convenient
el tratado.
for us to have this treaty.
Pues él es de los principales opositores, pero
He is one of the primary opposers,
una
but
persona,
he is a person
progresista,
that is progressive,
tiene simpatías
and he has sympathies
por el gobierno
with the government of Mexico
y mucho respeto a los
and lots of respect for the Mexicans.
y yo creo que ayudó mucho la conversación
And I think that the conversation helped a lot
este encuentro.
with this meeting.
Yo estoy confiando,
Yes, I
yo
am
creo que se
confident
va a
that
aprobar pronto
I believe that it will be approved shortly, the treaty,
y que es lo mejor, lo
and
que
that it
más
is the
conviene.
best, that is most convenient.
No veo
I do not see
problemas
problems
que no se puedan resolver
that cannot be resolved.
y siento que hay sin querer meterme en la vida interna
I do feel that there is, if I don't want, but I don't want to get involved in the internal situations of the U.S. I feel that it has to do with consensus,
que hay coincidencias
that there's coincidences
de los dos partidos,
with the two parties,
tanto el Partido Republicano como
the
el
Republican
Demócrata,
and the Democratic Party. Let's say
mayoritariamente
majority,
los legisladores
the
ven con
legislators
buenos ojos
look upon it with with good. They have good.
se exprese, se vea
They
reflejado
appear to have a
porque
good
en
will
realidad
towards the
pronto,
contract, and we hope that it'll
que
be
ayuda mucho.
happen shortly because it would help us a lot.
Me gustó la declaración.
I like the declaration.
Digo que no.
Why do I
Sí,
say
sí.
no? But if it yes, I like it.
Me gustó la declaración.
I like the
No sé si sea
declaration. I don't know if it's
cierta,
true,
no puedo yo verificar,
but I cannot verify it.
pero si es como salió
But
en
if it
los
is
medios,
the way it was in the media,
un abogado
that an attorney
expresa
expresses
que Guzmán Loera
that Guzman Loera
quiere que su riqueza
wants
se
his
entregue a las
riches
comunidades indígenas de
to be
México,
given to the indigenous people of Mexico, I see it well, and I celebrate it.
más nosotros
especially, we've already initiated a process because we want that which is confiscated from the U.S. from delinquents or presumed delinquents in Mexico needs to be returned to Mexico. That they don't need to captivate it and keep it in the U.S. No matter will be left to be litigated when it has to do with money that is in the U.S. and that might belong to the Mexicans. That is to say, we're going to take all legal actions that are necessary. And I am also letting you know, and that I am very conscious of the judgment for this person that took the life for the Mexicans in El Paso. For that has not been forgotten. And there is now a work being done with the Attorney General in relations in order to deal with this matter with xenophobia, racism against Mexico and against U.S. people, but also on our part, we need to protect and defend and represent Mexican people, and we are going to do so. And if it is necessary, and if it proceeds according to the law, it will depend on what the crime was. What crime are they going to sentence him for? Depending on that, we will exercise our right to solicit extradition if it is necessary. The attorneys were explaining to me that this is being ventilated in a district of Texas, and there they will be determined regarding the crime and the punishment, and we will follow it, and we are being permitted to monitor and to participate in the process that is happening in this case. We are not saying no to racism and hate crimes and xenophobia. This will not be permitted, and it will not be accepted. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Goodbye. All right, you guys, it's over. And I did say I wanted to share with you a brief little video. It'll take just a couple of minutes if you want to stick around. I'm going to change. Oh my goodness, where is it? Where is it? I think it's this one. Yes, okay, I'm going to make it big. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play it. So this is a corrido for the president. From Peru.
Voy a cantarles un corrido muy ufano de un hombre bueno y muy querido por aquí. Es dirigente de todos los mexicanos, ha recorrido el territorio porque sí, el más fracado de toditos mis paisanos, al que llamamos presidente, sí señor, sabe completo los problemas sin buscarnos, importarnos no supimos resolver, vamos juntitos acabando con la periodistas, policías y la racia, que han conmigo la confianza sin cesar. Te invito a ti, querido hermano mexicano, con el camino a resolver la impunidad. Ponte las pilas y trabaja ya temprano. Deja el saqueo y toda conformidad. Anota logros, no envidies al vecino. Si pones piedras, úsalas para construir. Tenemos viales para que ayudes, no que jodas. Este país te ha dado mucho para vivir. El presidente está contigo, este sí vale. Si lo traicionas a ti mismo dolerá. Andrés Manuel nos ha mostrado todo el jale, que ese trabajo nos dará para comer. Te seguiremos todos juntos hasta el fin, codo a codo, para levantar el país. Ya estamos hartos de mentiras y traiciones. No más saqueo de políticos ladrones. El presidente está contigo, este sí vale. Si lo traicionas a ti mismo dolerá. Andrés Manuel nos ha mostrado todo el jale, que este mi México y muy pronto triunfará. Sí, señor. All right, you guys, that was it. Anyway, that is Blanquita Pasapera, and Intelectua, Silvia Darreram wrote the words to the song, and Blanquita Pasapera is the one who sang it. She's from Peru, and she works with Mr. Casanelli, RBC. It's Ricardo Belman Casanelli, and also Jota was the producer. He helped with putting together the music and the video for it. Okay, you guys, anyway, that's the end of that. So let me just see if I can get rid of that video there. Anyway, well, that's the end of that. Goodbye. Oh my goodness. Goodness gracious, I'm trying to stop it.